everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week we are continuing on with my Rococo Snow White project that you can see right here. And the main issue that we need to solve with this project, in case you didn't watch the last video, is that my petticoat ruffle is fraying like crazy. Oh my gosh. So I cut this using a scalloped rotary cutter, this guy right here. And normally on like a taffeta, this works great and we don't have any fraying and there's no problems and it just looks nice and crisp and historically accurate, because although they wouldn't have used a rotary cutter, they used a punch to get this scalloped look on most of their trims and ruffles. However, this is my first time attempting this with Dupioni, and Dupioni does not like to be raw. It's fraying like crazy. So I posted over on Instagram and on Here Is a Short and a bunch of other places, I posted a little video asking you guys what you would recommend doing in this situation, or if I would just have to hem this entire thing and wouldn't be able to use the nice scalloped edge. And you guys came back with a bunch of different options and we tested a couple of them in the last video. For one, we did test on just using fray check and painting it on thinly and seeing if that would work. And it left, as I figured, marks on both sides of the fabric. It bled through and it just generally looked ugly. We also tested using the scalloped rotary cutter on the opposite direction of the grain, which would mean recutting all of this, wasting a whole bunch of fabric, and seeing if that would do anything better. It still does fray, just as a little recap. So it still does fray. It's not nearly as bad. Like, this is workable, I think, but it's still not great. So there were a couple of other methods that I had to order, which is why we are now testing them in this video. For one, I didn't actually have to order this, but I hadn't received this comment by last week's video, and that was just to use tacky glue instead of any sort of like fray blocking product to brush this on from the backside in a clear coat. So we're going to test that out. I also had ordered Aleene's, same brand, Aleene's Stop Fraying, which is another option here instead of just regular fray check. And again, painting this on from the back of the fabric and seeing how this works. So we'll test that one out. And then I also received a bunch of comments actually about using basically a fusible stabilizer from the back, and then that would kind of lock the fibers together and so it wouldn't fray. So instead of using like a full bolt of fusible stabilizer, what I found online was this Miss Wendy Fuse fusible knit stabilizer, and this comes in a little spool and you can just, it's actually quite stretchy because it's meant for knits, and you can just fuse that to the back and then I can cut through that and we'll see if that frays. So let's go ahead and test out those three methods and see what actually works, if anything, so that I really hope I don't have to hem this fabric. So starting with the tacky glue, I am brushing this on in kind of a narrow line here. Honestly, this stuff feels really thick. So I don't know about this. I'm literally just dipping my brush into the bottle itself to do this because I tried to pour some out and it was so thick it didn't want to pour out. Mine is also, I don't know how many years old, so that could be affecting this test, but I figured since I already had it, let's go ahead and put it in the test. Honestly, this feels somewhere between like glue and rubber cement. So yeah, this might be wildly like expired or something. But I think that's plenty to test number one. So let's now move next to that and use our Stop Fraying. So we're going in with the same brush that I have cleaned out here. This is a much thinner glue, but it looks like what I kind of think of normally as tacky glue. By the way, this is obviously a clear tacky glue. I don't know if that has any difference than like standard tacky glue. And I also don't know how different this Stop Fraying kind of acts than tacky glue. Honestly, I'm a little bit concerned that like this is too thin of a line too. I just need it to be like the thickness of the scallop, but this does seem very thin. And I was told that you paint this on the back of the fabric and that it should not bleed through and make a big wet mark on the other side. Hopefully that is true. but we're gonna test a nice little stretch here and wait for that glue to dry before we run our rotary through it. This is what the Miss Wendy fuse looks like. That is the non-fusible side. That is the fusible side, which they tell you with a little sticker. And I'm actually going to cut this in half because this is way wider than I would need. And then we will go ahead and iron it onto the fabric. I'm ironing this down with my tiny little Aliso so that I don't run into the glue section. And once the glue is dried, I will test all three of these options. Okay, let's test it out. Here's our stop fraying line. Here is our just tacky glue line. This is the interfacing that's iron on. And from the opposite sides, you really can't see much of any of it. There's a little bit of a line here and even slightly lighter of a line there. It's not bad. It's way better than any fray check, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and run our rotary cutter on all three of these. There's one. I do feel like maybe I should have made these lines a little bit wider because I don't know if I'm fully getting these. Okay, so the top test is with the interfacing. I mean, yeah, doing a good job. Looks nice. And it seems like that's maybe the most reliable. Like it wouldn't, fray further because it literally can't. This one is tacky glue. I actually really like the stiffness of that. Like that feels really nice. And it's not going anywhere. If anything, it's moving less than this with the interfacing is. That looks great. And I don't really feel like you can see the line along the bottom of that either. Let's try over here with the stop fraying. That's also doing a great job. Okay. Wow. Yeah, no line. And it's not fraying. It doesn't quite have the stiffness, I would say, that the tacky glue does. Like this has really it feels hard at the edges, whereas this feels softer and yet is still not fraying. So I kind of think that's the best option. Though, no, I mean, the line is almost non-existent on both of them. And it would just save me from doing a lot of the ironing on up here. Plus, I feel like that will make it stiffer just because it's literally a whole other layer that's back there. And of course, if it flips, then we see that. So I don't love that because over here, I mean, if we're looking at the back, the tacky glue is the best. You can almost not see that at all because it dried totally clear because it is clear tacky glue. This one, we do see a little line from the back, but considering that's on the back side, I don't think that will be a problem. I'm honestly torn on which one I want to use between the stop fraying or the tacky glue. It's going to be one of those. And the stop fraying did apply a little easier, but if anything, what's weird is this still feels sticky. Can you see that sticking to my finger? That's sticking to my finger, whereas this does not stick to my finger. So, you know what? I think we might have a winner. I'm painting on the tacky glue on both edges with my brush and then recutting the edges and then regathering using the existing threads that I had sewn in earlier. The ruffle is now re-ruffled up. I did actually just keep the same gathering threads from last time that were already in there. I just flattened this back down out so that I could do all of the painting of the tacky glue and everything and then, run the rotary cutter through. It looks so nice. I also have one full end of the trim all fussy cut. This stuff has been taking for freaking ever. And I mentioned in the last video that I don't know if I want the full length of here, but I have cut this to the full length. I have also cut a few, I know I have more somewhere, I think I have at least one other, a few of the small motifs, and I did start on the other end, but I have not quite finished that one yet. So I'm pretty close. I will be finishing that tonight. But I figured let's go ahead and play with some of these trims on the skirt, see kind of the arrangement that I want, see, you know, how long I want these motifs to be and how that's gonna go. I have not yet made any of the ruched trim, so I have this little test piece that is not fray checked, obviously. And if I do decide on adding this within the petticoat, I will obviously have to figure out how to paint on my lines of tacky glue in the right places so that I can then cut this. So that will take a while just because I'm limited for how much tacky glue I can do at one time, because I'm basically doing like 36 inches because it fits on my cutting mat and I don't want to get glue everywhere. So yeah, it's a slow process and it's already Sunday. So we're gonna see how much we get done today. And I think I also might cheat this video a little bit and make it a little bit longer. We'll see. But let's go ahead and play with trims on the skirt and see how they look. This is option 1, which I already know that I do not like because I just feel like the really sequiny, decorated trim, etc. just gets so overshadowed over here, especially because we're not seeing where it separates into the tendrils, which is like underneath here. I think that the ruffle just does too much on top of that and we lose the sparkle entirely. So we definitely have to separate those out. I'm almost wondering about switching them around, maybe putting the ruffle towards the hem and see what that does. I realized I was terribly misremembering where the ruffle was on my Robella Francaise from last year, and that's why I had set it down lower. I thought that's where it was. I went and looked at it, and it starts 24.5 inches up, or rather this line of stitching is 24.5 inches up from the hem. So that is where that is now positioned to, or at least I measured the center one and I eyeballed the sides. Now my ruffle is now a little bit shorter than the ruffle on that one because I wound up having to cut it shorter to do the new scallops. So it's probably a half inch, maybe even more shorter. I haven't measured it to compare. So now I'm like, is that a little bit too high? Maybe I could bring it down a little. I think I will take a measurement here and compare it with the ruffle last time because I feel like this is looking too far from the ground at this point. But I am really liking that we're really getting a chance to let the appliques sing, and there's not really light on it right now, which is why it's not really sparkling, but it does sparkle like crazy. And I like having more of the separation in between, but I think this could probably come down an inch and we would still get that nice separation. The other thing that I was looking at is I feel like doing this in kind of an S wave across would be so pretty. And I think what would be even cooler would be to cut just the flower motif, like flower and stem off, and put that kind of in between the scallops as it goes. I think that would be really pretty. And then we would get rid of the rest of this, which of course I have already fussy cut 4 of and wouldn't have needed to. With this, by the way, based on where this is now, I am actually glad that I cut it up all of the way, because if this were to flap up a little bit, we're going to see the top of that motif and it will be fine to have a little hidden sparkle in there. So that doesn't bother me at all. Also, there is, of course, the whole thing of this being opposite from the other motif. Just so you can kind of see the difference side by side, I've laid them out here together, and it is just, I think, a 1-in-1 opposite. And I think what I will do is actually to keep one solid motif going across here. There's a little bit longer than what I have pinned currently, but I'll have it going all across the front, and then I will fill in the sides with additional motif so that because of over here, like where we do see the peak of it out from the bottom of the skirt, and especially if I were to draw this up, because I still haven't really decided on that, we will get additional motif, but it'll be less obvious where the divide is. So I'll just kind of, cut this somehow. I'm not exactly sure, but cut it and then meld it to the other motif where I run out of motifs on that one. And that way we'll still get kind of continuous. And yeah, so things are looking really pretty. I think I'm going to start painting some of the tacky glue on to make that sort of ruffle. So I have to figure out the ratio that I have on my little test piece there, because I do like that ratio. And for that sort of ruffle, I would really only need from like here, I think, to about there. So I just have to figure out that sort of ratio of how much I need, and we will start painting the tacky glue on. So the math isn't mathing because clearly I somewhere have a measurement wrong, but the other skirt is like 14 1/4 from the bottom of this to the hem. And that's really what I'm getting here too. I might be an eighth, maybe even a 1/4 inch off, but it's very, very close. However, this part on mine here is like 11 1/2, whereas the other one is over 12. And so this is shorter. And so maybe I measured something on here wrong, but it is approximately the same width from the bottom there to the hem as on the other one. Maybe it's not sitting quite as high. I'm going to remeasure things again, but right now we're just pinned in place anyway, and I'm going to go make some of that ruche trim. I've painted the 3 stripes of glue on 3 inches apart, and so now I'll go ahead and use the rotary cutter, cut those into strips, and then I'm going to run gathering stitches along the edge for each of them and pull those gathering strings up. Actually, I will probably seam them together first before running the gathering stitches, but I may not run one gathering stitch for all of this because that might be a bit much. So I think this is going to be our final design look for it. So we've got the lace down at the bottom, swooping up, and I will probably have to hand sew a bunch of that. I may actually try to like free motion quilt that on, basically using the free motion foot, but I think I might have to hand sew some of that because it's so textured. Then we've got the ruffle going across there. That can be machine sewn on, so that's nice and easy. And then you can see I've got the little like zigged, snaky, ruched bit up there. I'm going to even all of this out, by the way. This is only roughly pinned on at the moment, but I've got the snaky ruche trim there. And then with that, I've also got some of the little appliques from there. And I cut them out to be a smaller motif than like the full applique motif, just because I felt like those were too big. I'm even tempted to cut them down further, but I think when I snake this out for real, I'm going to have it curve, scoop up and down a little bit more. And so we'll get a little bit more room for those appliques within there. But I think that looks really nice. So I'm glad that we were able to figure out all of those trims on the petticoat. I'm excited about them and I think that they look really good. I do kind of wish that I could start on like the stomacher and everything before actually sewing those on. But while I thought my stomacher fabric was supposed to get here tomorrow, it just got shipped today, apparently. Apparently they just made a label and didn't ship it. So I guess that's a warning for if you do get the fabric from the place that I linked down in the description. They mark it as shipped almost a full week before they actually ship it, because at this point I ordered it about a week and a half ago. So anyway, that's gonna wait probably until I am back from my trip. Because although you are seeing this video once I'm back from my trip, I'm filming this before I leave. So yeah, the stuff that involves the red, that's gonna have to wait until later, but I'm going to use the rest of this couple of days here before I leave to start sewing on these trims. So I'll give you a little bit of an update about like how many of those trims I actually managed to get sewn on this week, especially if some of them are going to be hand sewn. That's going to take a little bit longer, but I'll give you one more update before I leave for my trip, and then we'll go into the outro from there. So I managed to get exactly 0 of my trims sewn on before I left for my trip. I am actually now coming to you from after my trip. So I do have one little update that happened kind of while I was on my trip, in that the stomacher fabric arrived. Or it was supposed to have. Yeah, no, I opened that package after returning home, after 2 weeks away. Now, it arrived on the day after I left, and I opened up the fabric, I opened up the package, and the fabric was completely soaked. Not the wrapping outside, not even the inside of like the plastic mailer. The inside of the cellophane within the plastic mailer was completely soaked. So I immediately went and washed it because I'm like, oh my God, 2 weeks of soakage that's just been sitting in there. That's not good. But while I was washing it, I was also like, this fabric seems really, really lightweight. Maybe it has changed because it's wet. Maybe when it dries, it'll be fine. So I decided to wet my swatch and see if that behaved in the same way. No, it definitely did not. She sent me soaking wet lining fabric. This is lining fabric. That's why you can probably see me through it right now. That is not the fabric I ordered. So I sent her off many, many messages and pictures and all sorts of stuff. But it is Sunday when I am recording this outro right now, the day before this video is about to go out. I messaged her, I think it was like early yesterday, like Saturday morning. So she never seems to check messages and respond over the weekend. So she better respond tomorrow, and she better send me the right fabric because I ordered taffeta. Like, the swatch was correct. I swatched this fabric. Hopefully this isn't just a bad experience overall with this seller. All of the other experiences that I've had with her, like swatching for Felicity, getting the Felicity fabric, swatching for this, etc., have been good. I don't know what's going on here. And hopefully it gets resolved soon, but I will let you know how it gets resolved in the next Snow White vlog, which isn't for a while, because next week we are going to go into travel content, and we're going to be there for at least a few weeks, like at least 3. Because I have a lot of footage. So hopefully you're going to enjoy some London vlogs, Ireland vlogs, trip to the V&A, all sorts of stuff, because a lot of this was costume related, or at the very least was historical related. So I think that you guys are going to enjoy that, and make sure to check back next week for the start of those videos. And video wise, we will be back to Snow White in a few weeks, but if you do follow me on Instagram, you'll probably see updates significantly before then, because Instagram is going to be ahead by quite a bit for the next few weeks. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, and also that London and Ireland content, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes with additional costuming or sewing or travel related content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have links to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean and Kim. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!